Hello everyone, we're here with Deidra Kling. We're going to talk to her about her art tonight, about other things of her life. But let's just start with your history a little bit.
Sure.
Where are you born?
I was born in New York, in Long Island. Selden. I think I was born in Selden. No, I was born in Huntington.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the first experience with art that you ever had? The very first experience you can think of?
If I think back to what I consider to be art, I was always obsessed with looking in encyclopedias and books and whatnot, because I grew up in the early 80s and 90s where you didn't have what we have now. So I would look in National Geographics and things like that influenced me. 90s magazines, pop art magazines. But I used to have these posters of over my bed. I had this one poster that was a ballerina, but it wasn't all of her. It was just her feet. And so I just remember, maybe it was the whole ballerina, I don't really know. But I only remember the legs down and the feet on point, and I used to draw it all the time. I would just obsessively draw these ballerina.
It's strange you say National Geographic. My mother worked for National Geographic.
Really?
Yeah, she did the airbrushing for the tubes.
Really?
Yeah.
If I could have done something, I think I always dreamed of doing something like that, photojournalism or something like that. So I was obsessed with National Geographic.
Anybody in your life early that did art that you can remember?
My biological mother was she was a pianist.
Now, why do you say biological mother like that?
Because she's a horrible person that's not in my life.
Okay, then go on with the other part.
So she's my mother, but she's not my mother in my life, my
Okay.
present life. So,
Right.
but she was a great pianist. She could hear something and play it. At least of my memory of it, I remember her playing all of the time, and she could draw really well.
Do you play any instruments? I know
Yeah, I grew up playing the piano,
Piano.
and then I played clarinet in school. I've learned a little itty bitty bit of guitar. I'm still trying to learn. But
Do you
yeah.
still play any of those instruments?
Yeah, I play my guitar, not as often as I should, but I do. So, when we had our kids were doing piano lessons, I would get on there and play a little bit.
Well, you brought up children. How many children do you have?
Well, my husband and I have 5 between us. Well, we have 3 that live with us and 1 that's older out of the home. So, but 3 children that live in a home that we're raising.
So you brought up your husband. Tell us about him a little bit.
My husband, Jeremy Kling, he's a musician and artist, photographer, videographer, sound engineer, producer. So he does all of that.
Yeah. So anything we would ever heard of?
Oh, absolutely. So he is an incredibly talented human being. He's done many, many things. So he's been in so many different bands. Him and his best friend / brother have 25 bands together.
Okay.
So
any of your children play instruments?
right now, our son who's 15 is playing guitar.
Okay.
He's taking lessons.
So are they doing any art?
I think that the way I look at it with our children is that they will, but I think they're rebelling against us a little bit, because in our home it's myself and Jeremy and our friend Taylor, who's also a musician, and we have a very creative environment at home. We have an art studio and recording studio, and you have everything at your fingertips that you could possibly want, anything. And they're I'm good. They're not really super interested in it.
So what are they interested in?
They're versed in it, they understand it, and
Right.
it's there, but they're not really interested in doing it on their own right now. But they're interested in things that preteens and teens are interested in right now.
So who got you interested in art? Who was the main person you can remember?
I think,
Either somebody in your family or a famous artist?
no, I think it was just an organic thing for me. I had such a indestructible desire to communicate growing up. And I can't imagine a time before I did any of that. I remember writing stories. I was always writing. I was always sketching. I was always taking pictures.
Where were you doing this at?
When I was 7, 8, 9.
Well, where would this be at?
At home.
I know, but anywhere in Florida or?
No, I lived when I was in New York until almost high school.
And so did you have art in high school? Did you have anything?
I had an art class in high school, and I couldn't honestly tell you anything about it, because I don't think that I was ever interested in anything that was institutionalized.
Uh-huh.
So I never wanted to fall in line. I just was never going to do it. I just did everything on my
That's
own.
strange you use the word institutionalized. You mean like academic art?
Yeah. I wasn't really that great at like, I don't know what the word would be. Like something that was laid out for you and told you to do this. I wanted to do my own thing.
Programmed?
Yeah, I'm like a natural rebel. Like I kind of just reject a lot of things. Like I influence. I remember in the early days of my photography career, it was like 5 or 6 years, I refused to even turn on a TV or watch TV because I didn't want to be influenced by like popular culture. I didn't want to be influenced by other people's like trending ideas. So I just like turn it off.
Well, we're going to be influenced by something.
Yeah, I'm influenced by my friends and their passions.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about a lot of stuff, so it comes in.
So how did the photography come in? When did you start really taking that very...
Seriously? Interesting. So the story is like if you ask me like modern day, early like 2012, so someone said, when did you start doing photography? I was like, oh, I just started a few years ago. But then when I really sat down and thought about it, I realized I had done it at a very young child.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a photographer and his dad was a photographer. And
What type of photography did they do?
like just everyday point and shoot stuff, but they were always...
So they weren't Olin males or nothing like that?
They weren't artists in any way.
Oh.
My grandfather, who was a photographer on his end, they were all, my family's Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandfather was a survivor of World War II, the camps and all that. I won't go into that.
Holocaust.
So
Okay.
the Holocaust. So his family was mostly like affected by it and annihilated, and he came to, I just know that I seen like, I have their cameras and seen their photos and stuff, so he was always shooting, and then my dad was always shooting, and it's just natural for me, I guess, to pick it up.
So you were exposed to that at an early age. Do you think, some people would describe your art as a little dark,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit. So where do you think that comes from?
Well, me. I don't know. I had like a really traumatic childhood and upbringing, and probably just like who I am as a person, how I see the world. Because when I started shooting photography like this, like the story, and I've shared this once before, but like not getting too deep into the situation, was that I was in a very like abusive marriage, and I was like very contained in that bubble,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't really like allowed to like do anything. I was an artist.
Very controlled?
I was really very much an artist, and like I guess you'd call it a free spirit up to that point. And then when I was in that situation, like the indoctrination of the societal idea of what women are supposed to be, I was put in that spot, and that's what I did for like 7 years. I didn't do anything.
No art, nothing?
Nothing. And I tried to sort of like find my way out. I would find these little like creative outlets that I would try to like pour myself into.
Give me an example.
I was doing like cake decorating, like sculpting things. Like I was doing
Things
anything.
you thought were acceptable,
Yeah.
but artistic.
That was like fit into the mold,
Mhm.
And then I started pushing further and further. I wanted a camera, and it just kind of like, the camera really like saved me from that environment, I believe.
What's the first artistic thing you did after that environment that really made you think, well, maybe this is what I want to do?
Oh, I knew as soon as I was playing around with a camera. It was a Canon like G10 or something. It's like this little like advanced point and shoot that came out.
Way before phone?
No, this was like 2010.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just like a Canon G10. It's like a digital camera. It's not quite a DSLR. It's not quite a point and shoot. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. It has like extra bells and whistles. I had wanted a like DSLR. I was like, oh, if I can have anything for the holiday, like this is what I want. Well, I was given like that camera, and it was like a little bit.
Who gave that to you?
My ex-husband.
Okay.
So what had happened was, it wasn't really the one I wanted, but I'm never like going to be ungrateful for what I have. I was very happy to have it. So I was playing around with it and like taking macro shots of like flowers and things like that. And it broke after like a week. It just like stopped taking pictures. Like it had nothing was wrong with it. It just went like, the screen went like pink or something. I brought it into like where it was purchased from, like Best Buy. And they said, this is on recall, we don't have it anymore. We can't do this. And they were like, we can give you your money back or you can upgrade. And I was standing in front of like the wall of cameras, and it had the lenses and the DSLRs and stuff like that I'd never had, and I was just drooling at them. And at the same time, my like partner at the time was like, you're never gonna use that. That's a horrible idea. Don't do that. You don't want, like in my, like that thing, and I just like, the guy was standing in front of me from Best Buy, and I was like, I'll take this one. And that was my act of rebellion that like set me like on a path.
Alright.
So like I just like ran with it. I became bitten by the obsessive need to like learn more about that.
But you still painted, correct?
I didn't start painting until I might have painted a few times in my life, like maybe a very few times, but I didn't really start painting until, was it 2016 or 17? So that's very new for me.
What made you start painting?
Wow.
Because you're already doing photography.
Yeah, and I'm doing photography, and I feel very confident in photography, and I've been working on it for so long, and I feel very like solid in that world of understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
And then painting and art is like such a foreign world for me. It was such a challenge. I was like a little baby starting like all over again from like basic, no idea. It kind of started, I remember, was I had like a medical problem at one point where I was like kind of like, I had to have a surgery and I was a little bit bedridden for a little while. And I started doing watercolor from like, because I couldn't go shoot. I couldn't do anything. I was like not feeling, I was not.
So you spontaneously did this, or did you watch some YouTube videos?
I just
You
kind of
just started
started
painting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I started and then the YouTube videos come in where you're like, oh, I need to know more, and you find artists that you love, and you try to figure out like the basics of it.
Yeah.
I still have some of my very first little watercolor paintings and little oil things that are like, it's so interesting to look back at them.
So how do your children take this when they see you painting?
I think it's so normal to them. They really don't like see it as like anything.
But they don't participate, don't you?
No, they'll sit with me, and sometimes they'll paint, and sometimes they don't.
All right.
Yeah, they're not really like trying to be me, which is fine. I want them to be them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, they don't have to be an artist. I would be totally fine with that. If they wanted to be like a scientific engineer or something, I'm like, go do it.
So we already talked about some of your art being dark.
Yeah.
What kind of blowback have you got from some of this art? Give us some examples of that.
Recently,
Recently would be
the
good.
entire Christian community literally like shamed me out of a photography group.
Can we hear about that?
That's so stupid. It really makes me angry, to be perfectly honest, because I had created this series right before Christmas, and it was kind of had religious overtones, but it was coming from my voice, and like I'm creating, and they were like, "This is disrespectful. You don't belong here." Like I got literally like it was horrible, but to me it was like, these aren't even that bad. It was a nude woman. She had like fake blood on her. She, it really wasn't. She had barbed wire. It was just very metaphoric, and like I've seen way worse things in the world.
Okay.
But they took it so personally because they said it was disrespectful. They said it was like offensive to them.
How did that make you feel when you heard that?
I'm gonna do it again. I want to post it in there.
Is that the rebellious part?
I guess so.
So you still have that?
What?
You still have the rebellious part? Yeah.
I imagine.
Oh yes.
I mean, if you want to have your own voice and you don't want to bend, like you have to stand up for what you believe in. And I really backed what I did, and I was very proud of it. And these people are so offended. They were rude about it. They weren't even like. But the thing is when you have a whole group like against you, like wanting to burn you at the stake, basically, there's always a group of people behind you that are gonna support you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, no, this is fine.
So let's hear about the best day of art you ever had.
The best day of art I ever had? I think one of the coolest moments I had was probably when I showed in New York. That was a really cool moment.
How long ago was that?
This was 2019, I think. I had was asked to a few times actually, but the first time was to show at Last Rites Gallery in New York City with some wonderful artists.
That was photography?
Yeah, I actually did show some encaustic pieces as well. I did a whole series of encaustic photography.
Seems like I remember that for some reason.
Probably. I'd taken all my photos and I shredded them, and then I was using them to like recreate new photos with the photos, and then I was like embedding it with wax. I stopped doing that because I felt like it was giving me brain damage, because I didn't really know that the encaustic wax was as toxic as it is, and I didn't have as much ventilation.
At least you didn't use cobalt paint.
Yeah. So I kind of like waited until I have more ventilation to like re-engage encaustic.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of that. Now, you have a book here.
Yeah.
The Haunted Flesh. Tell us about the book.
Oh, hold on, back up.
All right, we're back
I didn't
up.
finish the thought over that. So when I showed in New York, the coolest part was that like on the opening night, like I was the only artist that actually sold a piece of work.
Oh, wow.
The only person through the entire night, and I felt like such like I'm a girl from Florida, you know, like I'm not in this world. I don't have like connections in New York, and like that was like a very cool for me feeling of like I actually belong here, you know.
The show I had in New York, Ray Paul and I got thrown out of. So,
Really?
Yeah.
What happened?
You were drinking too much.
Really?
Yeah. I have some bad memories about New York.
Really?
That's okay.
It's just cool to be here, right? Like it's cool to like be in that environment. Jeremy plays a lot of shows in New York, and we've been to like touring in New York, and it's just it's a whole
Around NYU, around Washington Park.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember. It was. What's the New York City venue we were at last time?
Put him on the spot.
Gramercy.
Gramercy.
Okay, so where do you want to go next with your art? Where do you want to take your art?
That's kind of where I'm at right now. Like I'm really questioning that myself. I'm
Okay.
really questioning like what I want to do because I've done so much with my photography, and the book is kind of like something that I dreamed of doing since I was in high school, and it came together in such a way that I'm so proud of it, and I couldn't imagine it to be even more. You know how in hindsight most of our pieces we were like, oh, I would change this, I would change that. I don't really back this or that. In hindsight, like all of it, I'm like super proud of all of it. I wouldn't change a bit of it. But like, now what?
Well, we didn't finish with the book. So you had the first printing was sold out. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
really good.
I was stoked.
Let's see. Your painting and your photography are totally different.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think
it's
that
so
is?
weird. I don't know. It's so weird to me.
Hmm.
I don't know.
You know, they usually say painting is more true to your character.
Really? I always think I'm gonna paint dark and black and white and like how my photography is, but my paintings tend to be more colorful.
Yeah, they have.
Is
I saw them up there.
Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah. We used to be in the same art colony up here
Yeah, I miss
before
it.
we were.
Kicked out,
Yeah.
excised.
We were redeveloped, I say.
We were we were
Yeah.
reorganized.
Developing terrorists. But anyway, so how long have you been showing your art around Ybor?
I actually used to. I was trying to like for probably the last 10 years
All right.
showing around here.
Okay.
I curated a show here back in like 2014.
At the Ritz?
Yeah. Did you go to that?
Is that the one where they were suspending people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell
Yeah.
Speak. It was
Yeah.
called Hell Speak, and we like had a line around the block.
Tell us about that show.
That was a cool show. I actually met one of our best friends, Becky, at that show. She was like the feature artist that we had. I just wanted to curate shows and like bring people together, and like there was like 30 or 40 artists or something. We had performers and like all kinds of body suspension and like all kinds of stuff. It was really cool. It was a
I
cool
wasn't
show.
expecting that when I came
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
And then there was one lady going around. She looked like a zombie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had people. I always like when we had the event here. I always had somebody do performance art at the show. So it's the same thing at Hell Speak. I had people walking around like little devils, little demons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really good show. Have you done any others shows?
Curating?
Yeah.
Not since then.
How did you get that opportunity?
At the time, I had a sort of like a friend slash like not like business partner, but we were like collaborating together, and just kind of like dive into stuff. I just go like, hey, let's just do this, and then you just start doing it, whether you know what to do or not.
What do you think of the art in this area, St. Pete and Ybor? Do you feel like the cities are supporting us the way they should?
From an outside perspective, I am not, to be perfectly honest, in the cliquey groups of the art groups of St. Pete or Tampa. I'm not. I've always been like an outlier. And I love everybody in it.
Is that because you rebel?
I just am not like, I've never been a person who just wants to be like involved in every little thing because it takes away from my existence and I can't do that. But
then the curating.
Yeah, it was fun. That was fun. But I feel like then I move on, right? Like something else.
So that's been done. Move
Yeah.
on to something else.
But as far as the cities, I think that they're in some ways are like they're not overall. But I think that they could be better. I could think that the building, the people how they, sorry, I'm like stuttering, so I'm angry about it, but how they treat like having spaces that are affordable for artists in the city is atrocious. They make it like artists are poor, I'm sorry. We're not trying to be millionaires and business people. A lot of times we're trying to create, and they do not make affordable places for people to have studios. And I think that that's unfortunate. It makes me very upset.
When I was in Atlanta, they would have places where you could go and work. You could pay just about to work there. You didn't have a studio there. You could bring your things and you could work there and you could leave. Then I had a studio on 32nd story of the Atlanta with Jennifer Boyce. But I forgot where I was going with that.
Talk about the city and how they treat artists and stuff.
So I'm saying
We
Atlanta.
don't have anything like that.
Atlanta, they actually would help you do art there, the Virginia Highlands and places. And since I've been here, the city talks a lot about art.
Right.
They say they promote art, but they don't really. I don't see that. St. Pete's done a little better job, but I'm too lazy to drive over the bridge. You know,
I never understood that. It's like 10
What's
miles.
that?
It's like 10 miles away.
I know. I mean, this is the only place I've ever heard of where they don't have a tram from one major part of the city to the other,
I
to
know.
another city. I mean, it's just over the bay.
Bad planning.
That is bad.
But
planning.
everything is about business and money here. Like even the collectives that open, or like they'll have an artist warehouse somewhere. It always turns into, and I'm like the pricing that I've heard of some of the spaces is just unbelievable because artists cannot, unless you have a sponsor, unless you have somebody that's paying your way, you can't do that as an artist. Then what do? You know?
Yeah.
I think art is at the core of every single thing, and I think every single person has it in them. And I think it's important for our free will in life to have art around and to see things we don't normally see and feel things we don't normally feel. Because we're not by nature business people. We're by nature creative because we create life and we create ideas and we, that is part of that's part of life. That's the essential core of it all.
When you're young, you draw, you paint, and then people begin to tell you, well, that you can't, and you start seeing that you can't create reality. But people who can't create reality, they also can work from their feelings. Like Rothko,
Yeah.
that's a lot of people don't like his work, but it's mainly they don't understand it. That if he's working from emotion, he's not trying to recreate reality.
Right.
But
they're looking at it simplistically, like, oh, what is, But if anybody who's ever tried to create any kind of an abstract painting realizes it's a lot harder than you think it
yes.
is. You stand in front of it and you like freeze. Or you do a couple things and you're like, that ain't it,
But then you also realize that some people who do abstract painting don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're going in there, they're splashing paint, they're just moving it around. They don't understand that art by definition is abstract. You're not actually making a tree, you're making a representation of something.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, if you could combine both the emotion and the imagery, then you really have something, in my opinion, because abstract painting to me is very hard. It's one of the most difficult things you can do, but then you see like a Gasparilla, 30 white guys like me doing abstract art, and it's horrible, and they're still selling it.
Mm-hmm.
So, once you get a name, you can get away
It's
with
a
a lot of
controversy.
things. Yeah.
I mean, it just has to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
You don't know.
So, what's the next medium you'd like to try? I know you've got to be thinking of something.
Yeah. I don't really, honestly, I really want to focus in my painting right now a lot.
You're going to stick with watercolor?
No, I've been working in oil quietly.
All right.
So I've been,
Baby oil and maybe wax, caustic
I
again?
love mixed media a lot. I love mixing like things up. I'm trying. It's less of like the idea of being a better like physical artist. That's important. Like there's things I'm working on there as far as skills go, but I'm really always working on like how to like drop your ego with it and how to just let go and be, because there's always going to be people that are better than you, but you are unique to you, and
Yeah.
your voice is the thing that's important. So honing in on your voice and not falling victim to morphing into trend, because if we morph into trend and we morph into what's popular, we lose ourselves. That's kind of like a message I've been thinking about a lot in the last week or two, is that like the only way to really succeed in anything or feel good about it is to not really try to do what you think people want you to do. We were just talking about this today. But yeah, like the art is dark, but to me it's not really dark. I really don't think that I've done anything that's like like what's dark, right? Anything that's not cheerful, I guess, but like there's beautiful, there's cheerful, there's dark. Like I've been called a dark artist my entire career, but I guess to me it doesn't seem dark.
You also have to remember, people when they look at photography or painting, they're bringing their own baggage to that thing. One thing I hate is when you go to an art gallery and they have on the wall all about the art,
Yeah.
what it's all about. And that's not really what painting and photography is to me. You have to make your own interpretation of what you're seeing, how you experience, what it means to you. And if you're told before time, I think that ruins it a little bit.
Yeah, but I've had a little bit of a different experience with that. Maybe it's with photography or painting that I found that I didn't want to tell anybody what was in the work, right? I wanted them to have their own ideas. And then people wouldn't connect to it because I think people want to be told what to think. And I don't mean that in like that people are ignorant. When I started putting names and titles and little descriptions, people go, oh, then they were like really into it, which is,
So you had to lead them down the road?
Yeah, just a little bit. Just like, what path are we going in? Because I went to the Guggenheim with my husband a while ago when we were.
Great museum.
Yeah, well, yes and no, yes and no. Yes and no, because I was going around going, I was just baffled by some of it, but at the same time.
Give me an example. What would you baffled?
It was really cool to see a Pollock. It was really cool to see all those works. But there was
not
some.
a big Pollock fan.
No, but you got to appreciate the madness, I guess, is the thing. He was him. And I appreciate that in a human being. Maybe not him in general, because he probably was kind of a scoundrel.
He represented capitalistic painting, where Picasso represented communistic. And they had a culture war. CIA was helping people buy paintings. I heard this article, and then the communists were helping Picasso sell, because it's a cultural war back. Even though it was art, they still had to have some conflict.
I was just watching a documentary about how the Reich and Klimt and that whole thing, and like how they deemed art in general as like deranged. Basically, you can't have it. But they kept Klimt around in some fashion. They burned a lot of them, but then like some survived. But it was interesting. So like the history.
He was a mama's boy,
Yeah. You know what's interesting about Klimt? I remember talking to my husband about this because I have a Klimt book, and there was a pie chart in his book about all the women he had sex with. I was like, can you imagine being reduced to this? Like a pie chart was like model and sexual partner, mother, sister. They were colored by like who he had as a sexual partner. I was like, this is horrible. This is horrible. Like you have someone's like art, and you're like, well, he had sex with this many women, and they had a literal pie chart about this.
You believe you have to separate the art from the artist? Because give you an example. I always say when they talk about Dali, he was a fascist. The whole economy is over there built on fascism. Because Dali was a fascist. He loved Hitler. He loved Franco. So, and that's one reason he got kicked out of the surrealistic society. Yeah.
I haven't gotten him yet.
Okay.
I'm like obsessed with his.
But I mean, he's a great artist, obviously.
I love Dali. He influenced me a lot. Frida Kahlo is one of my favorites. She was a communist, but like I love Frida Kahlo like so much, and more than just.
Why do you think most women do that? What do you think they're dating?
Frida?
Yeah.
There's just something about her that she didn't conform to the end. She was herself, and good or bad.
But yet she put up with Diego Rivera for so long.
Which is a very human thing and a very woman's role thing, which actually might make everybody feel more connected to her, because she really truly, if you watch the documentaries and it's no bullshit about her life, she didn't have an easy life, and she definitely did not conform in a time where women were being hung for doing what she was doing or being killed for what she was doing. And she did dark work. I loved Frida. I love her. So when I was holed up in bed and I was painting, I was just I'm just like Frida.
Yeah, because to create great art, you have to do some type of suffering. You have to go through something. And Joseph Campbell, we all have something we have to transcend past. And if you do that, you're going to draw a lot from your art. Like when I was doing all the psych work with all the psych patients, I got a lot from that. But now that I'm not doing that, I'm having to do different types of art, because you have to draw from your experience.
I did that for a very long time. My early days of my photography were darker than they are now. It's more ethereal now and dark, I guess. It was pretty dark in the early days, but it was really just working out my, like, it was like a diary, and I was like working out my traumas, like.
Is any of that in this book?
Some of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some of it. There's some like archival photos in there.
Have you ever lost any work? Like,
Yes.
I'll never meet an artist that can't say they haven't lost work if they've been
Years.
doing it.
I've lost hard drives, like where I lost years of work. I will never see again. It got to me. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a horrible experience. It's like, it's not, it'd be like a painting getting burned. You don't have the, it's fun.
Yeah, I have 10 years of music that I can't access because I don't have a copyright to it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Re-record it.
No. Anyway, is there anything you want to tell people before we cut this off?
I don't know. I mean, I guess something I've been really thinking about a lot is like, what do you do as an artist? Like, do you have to do the same thing all the time? I've been a photographer for a very long time and I love it dearly. It's so special to me. But do I have to always be a photographer? Your identity gets wrapped up in that, Maybe I'll never be good at anything else or whatever you think in your mind. But like, you have to be okay with evolving. And
Do you consider yourself an artist?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with people calling you an artist?
No. I didn't know. I think I was like even just in my 30s and someone called me an artist and I was like, what? I was like, can you say that one more time? And they were like, yeah, you're like an artist. It stopped me in my tracks because I didn't consider myself an artist. Even though I was living as an artist, I didn't consider myself that. I do now, for sure.
I still have trouble with that.
Like, I don't call myself a photographer, even though I am, I call myself an artist.
Mm-hmm.
It makes more sense.
Yeah. So, then you've pretty much self-taught off. You've taught yourself all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
You just have to have an obsession and a drive to learn.
You hit the right word. To be an artist, you have to be obsessed.
You have to be obsessed. And I live with two very obsessed artists, so like we're very much encourage each other like all the way. And when you're feeling at your craziest, they're like yes, and we also feel that way.
So here's a strange question: you watch black and white movies?
Like old ones?
Mm-hmm.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I love them, but I'm not like I sit down and watch like.
What's your favorite type of movie?
I like documentaries, and I like.
You're not like my wife, like Buried in the Backyard and all those
I don't know what that
murder
is.
porn things.
Sometimes, we sometimes do like a good murder show, but like overall, I really like documentaries. If I could pick and I would sit down and watch something, I would like always end up watching like some National Geographic thing about bears or otters or something like that.
See, that's not very dark. Is
I
it?
know. I don't watch horror movies ever.
See, that's interesting. You don't watch horror movies.
No, this is all my own horror.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so like a lot of what I try to convey has been from my own voice, and I can only speak from my perspective as a female in this world and the things that I've gone through and how I see the world and as a woman or as a mother or as a whatever. And so everything that I'm doing is just trying to like push this down the road. And if I can inspire or encourage anybody to create, then I hope I do.
So your mate here, he encourages you to do art?
Mm-hmm. He encourages all of my worst and best ideas.
Well,
Like if I said, hey, husband, I want to go get a little piano and set it on fire in the backyard, he'd be like, okay.
just make sure it's not an expensive piano.
Yeah, anything, anything. It's just such a weird, fun life to do whatever you want,
Okay, we've been talking with Deidra Kling. We'll have another artist here pretty soon. I hope everyone can rejoin us in the future.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day.